Have you ever seen a video where the camera's tossed in the air and it's spinning round and round and you see sky, then ground, then sky, then ground? That's how I remember my major accident. 1 second I was riding and the next second I was airborne. I remember lying in the grass, bike completely wrecked, and just thinking, how the hell did this happen? And my physical wounds healed up fast enough, but I could not escape the mental impact that was going to come afterward. It's not the kind of thing you just shake off. And if you've ever been down hard, you know that's the much harder journey. So this is a discussion on how you can face that and get back on the bike. You ever have one of those moments where time just stops? For me, it was a split second when I realized the car coming around a blind corner was in my lane. Next thing I know, I'm somersaulting through the air like a low-budget stuntman. I landed in somebody's yard like I was late for the barbecue, except instead of bringing potato salad, I brought trauma. Lots and lots of trauma, and about 40 stitches. Funny thing is, I didn't break a single bone, but the bike was totaled, and my pride, yeah, that was bruised like an overripe cantaloupe. But honestly, the real bruises, the ones that took the longest to heal, weren't the visible ones. Look, if you've ever been in a crash, on a bike, in a car, whatever, you probably know this already. The fear doesn't just go away because the swelling does. It sticks with you, quietly, invisibly, and if you're anything like I was, you try to tough it out. You laugh it off, you tell your friends you're fine, but deep down, part of you flinches every time a car crosses the center line just a little. But this video isn't about crash stories, or scary visuals, or even blame. It's about what happens afterwards. The fear, the anxiety, the weird shame. The way your brain tries to protect you by trying to convince you to give it all up. And why facing all that stuff, really facing it, is the only way to get back to being you. So yeah, today's not the usual ride video or talking head conversation. But if you've ever been scared to throw a leg back over the saddle, or just needed someone to say, hey, you're not crazy, then grab a cup of something and stick with me. Because I've been there, and I promise it gets better. All right, let's rewind the clock a bit. I was in my early 20s, still thought I was invincible, still had all my hair, and I believed the rear brake was my best friend. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. I just finished adjusting my chain, and I needed to see if it was dialed in right. So I hop on the bike, helmet on, confidence dialed up to 11, but here's where it unravels. I was distracted. I was not thinking like a rider. I was thinking like someone trying to make his chain slip. I was going too fast for that road, especially for what was coming. See, directly ahead of me, there was this crazy spot of road. Dogleg turned to the right that went down a descent on the other side, completely invisible, with a big tree right at the edge of the corner. Massive, old, unforgiving. And just beyond it, a car comes flying through the corner, not in their lane, but in mine. They had cut that corner like it owed them money. I had maybe half a second, and there was nowhere to go. It was either tree, car, or veer to the left. So I did the only thing I thought I could. I shot left, but it was too late. They T-boned me. The car's right headlight clipped me right under the knee, right as the bumper clipped me right above the ankle. Instantly split the skin wide open in both places. And I went flying, straight over the handlebars, somersaulted into somebody's front yard. I rolled with the momentum and sprung up on my feet like I was auditioning for Cirque du Soleil. Ripped off my helmet and I threw it down with disgust. Not because I had had a wreck or because I was injured, but because I was staring back at the crumpled up bike. A bike that wasn't even mine. It was my older brother's. Remarkably, somehow, I didn't break a single bone, but dozens of stitches would soon follow. Because I had not yet realized that my lower leg looked like a horror movie makeup test. But weirdly, in that moment, I wasn't scared. I was just mad. I was frustrated with myself, a little bit embarrassed, but mainly annoyed at the people in the car. But I didn't feel scared, at least not yet. That came when I saw my fiance's face, when I saw my mom's hands shaking. That was the part that hit me the hardest. It's one thing to crash and deal with your own injuries, but it's another thing altogether watching people who love you try to hold it together when they think they're about to lose you. And that guilt, that stuck. After that, I didn't own a motorcycle for years. I didn't even try to. And I told myself it was just about growing up and focusing on life. But the truth was, part of me didn't trust myself anymore. And those years were filled with a lot of mental gymnastics. Eventually, obviously, I did get back on a bike, but it took time, humility, and learning what I didn't know. The irony is, in the long run, it made me a better rider, a more cautious one, and a more educated one. That wreck humbled me in a way no track day or safety course ever could. And here's the part that really snuck up on me. It wasn't the pain. It wasn't even the stitches or the totaled bike or trying to limp around like I hadn't just auditioned for a crash test dummy role. It's what happened after. See, nobody warns you that the real aftermath of a crash is invisible. You look in the mirror and you see a mostly healed body, but in your head, it's a minefield. Weeks go by and you can't even explain what you're feeling. You chalk it up to being shaken up, but then you notice yourself tensing up every time you approach a blind curve, even in a car. Or you feel this low-key panic at intersections. Your heart jumps when you hear tires screech anywhere around you, and suddenly you're irritable. At school, at home, everything just feels off. And not like, oh, I'm scared to go ride, more like something inexplicable is wrong and I can't relax. Like your nervous system's on high alert, even when nothing's happening. And then the guilt starts creeping in. Most people are hesitant to get back on, and that bothers them. Like, if I was really a biker, I'd just brush it off and get over it. Twist the throttle and ride it out. That's what you tell yourself, right? That fear makes us weak. But the truth is, fear makes you human. It's completely natural. After a crash, your brain starts rewriting associations. That sound of gravel under your tire, now it's a warning. That curve with the tree, now that's a threat. Your brain's just doing its job. It's trying to protect you, but it does it by overreacting. And if you don't talk about it, if you keep pushing it down, that fear doesn't disappear. It just hardens. You stop riding certain roads, then maybe you stop riding altogether. And next thing you know, the thing that used to bring you peace is now a ghost in your garage. And then there's the other guilt. Not just the guilt from the crash itself, but unexpectedly, the guilt for how it impacted the people around you. One thing you don't expect, the crash doesn't just hurt you. It sends shockwaves through the people that love you. I remember my wife seeing me holding my leg, getting put onto an EMS stretcher, and her trying to hold it together with that desperate smile you wear when you're trying not to fall apart in front of somebody who's supposed to be the injured one. And my mom grabbing my hand like she was afraid I was going to disappear. I was transported, doped up, stitched up, but I was alive. But they carried a different kind of wound. The what if. What if the impact had been higher? What if I hadn't been thrown clear? What if I hadn't been wearing a helmet? What if I didn't come home? What we forget is that trauma isn't exclusive to the person who hits the ground. It radiates outward. Your family starts flinching every time they hear a siren. They track your location on their phone. They say, be careful, in a voice that means, please come home this time. And for a while, I didn't want to burden them any further, so I played it off. I said things like, I'm fine, or it's not as bad as it looks. Not for me, but for them. And I didn't try to get back on a bike because, at least for that moment, it was more than they could consider. My wife never wanted me to ride again. And I even felt guilty for how they had to care for me while I was healing. And I especially felt guilty for totaling my brother's bike. But what most people don't consider, what it takes most people a while to realize, is that not playing it off and letting those around you in doesn't make you weaker. It makes you stronger. Because when you talk about it, when you stop carrying it alone, it starts to lose its grip on you. Support doesn't always mean group therapy or crying on cue. Sometimes it's just being open and honest with your partner. Like, you know what? That crash shook me up a lot more than I thought it would. Or calling a buddy and saying, hey man, I feel a little off today. How about we just get together and hang out and talk? You don't have to heal alone. In fact, you shouldn't. Whether it's a friend, a spouse, a therapist, or just another writer who's been through it. Let whatever fears, doubts, or guilt you're carrying out into the open, because that's where it stops owning you. I want to say something real clear here. There is no right timeline for healing. None. Not a week, not a season, not even a year. I didn't want to ride again right away. I didn't even sit on a bike for a long time. And you know what? That was the right call for me and for the people I cared about. You might be different. Some folks are wired to get right back on. I probably would have if it was just me who it affected, or if I wasn't young and broke and could have afforded to replace the bike. But you may need time, space, maybe some therapy, and a lot of quiet, and sometimes even a little bit of crying. I know someone who went down and waited 15 years to ride again, and now he's tearing up the twisties like nothing ever happened. Me, I just needed not to force it. The idea of riding wasn't as exciting anymore. It felt heavy, like an unbroachable subject that you just didn't bring up, especially with my wife. Why would I put her through that? It was like it was something I had to earn back. And for a while, I was worried that I'd lost it, that I'd never be a rider again, or that I'd never be the rider I was. But eventually, I realized I didn't need to be that guy again. I didn't want to be that guy again. I could be better. Not faster, not braver, just more aware, more intentional, more trained, and more educated. And eventually, even more in love with the ride. So if you're not ready yet, that's okay. If you still tense up or still hesitant, still haven't gotten back on, that doesn't mean you're stuck. It just means you're still healing. And healing's not a race. It's a ride at your own pace. So here you are. You've gone through the crash. You've lived with the invisible weight of the fear, of the doubt, and the guilt. And now you're thinking, okay, now what? The truth is, there's no magical step-by-step program here. But there are a few things that will help you get from that scared, stitched-up version of yourself to someone who rides again with joy and intention. Things that can pull you out of that mental ditch and help you reclaim your confidence. And maybe it starts with something incredibly small, like walk into the garage, look at your bike, and just sit on it. That's it. Don't start it. Don't ride it. Just sit there. Hands on your grips. Let your brain feel the familiarity again, the normalness of it. And that's day one. Kind of like standing in a haunted house, but with all the lights on. The fear doesn't disappear, but it's a bit quieter. Then day two, maybe roll it into the driveway. No engine, just you and the weight of the bike. Day three, start it up and let it idle. Just sit there and listen. Let the vibration soak in. And then when you're ready to ride again, it doesn't need to be some dramatic comeback. Just make it a ride around the block, one loop. And then when you get back, get off the bike, pull the helmet off, you can say, I did it. No matter what kind of messed up emotions you were dealing with, you can say, I did it anyway. And that changes things because fear doesn't disappear in a blaze of glory. It slowly erodes. Bit by bit, ride by ride, you build trust in yourself again. And along the way, if you're like me, you learn some valuable tools that make a big difference. Let's talk about them. It turns out that scenario we were just talking about, sitting on the bike, riding small loops, that's a real psychological strategy. It's called exposure therapy. You gradually, safely expose yourself to the thing you fear. In small doses, your brain can handle. And over time, your brain rewires itself. It learns, this didn't hurt me. I survived this. I'm okay. But the key is don't skip steps. If all you can handle today is starting the bike and turning it back off, that's progress. If you make it to the end of your street and back, that's a win. Don't judge the ride, celebrate the effort. Another huge piece, finding community. I didn't jump into big group rides or weekend meetups or bike rallies at first. I just knew one guy, a friend who'd had his own wreck. So we talked, we compared crash stories, laughed at how we both still flinched at some pretty ridiculous things. And those conversations were the first time I didn't feel crazy talking about it. Community doesn't mean you have to show up in leather and ride 300 miles with a bunch of bearded bikers. It means having some people who get it, who don't rush you, who say, yeah man, I remember feeling like that. And suddenly, you're not alone in it anymore. Look, I used to think therapy was for people going through divorces or a midlife crisis. I was wrong. You should talk to someone who knows how trauma works. That helps you put language to all the weird crap going on in your head. Being young and in a tiny little town, I didn't really have access to this, but I saw it play out in later years after my wife had a bad car accident. Turns out being nervous every time you hear a horn isn't overthinking. It's your brain trying to keep you alive. A therapist helped her understand that and gave her the tools to get her power back. Even if you don't go the full therapy route, journaling, meditating, or just speaking it out loud will help you process what your mind is holding on to. And don't underestimate the role your body plays. When you've been injured or scared badly, it messes with your sense of control. Moving your body, training, walking, stretching, doing anything physical helps rebuild that connection. It's not about getting shredded, it's just about getting aware again. Feeling strong enough to trust yourself in a lean, or in a break grab, or in a corner. And here's one that may sound cheesy, but it's probably the hardest for you to do. Be kind to yourself. You don't have to prove anything. Not to your riding buddies, not to Instagram, and sure as hell not to some dude on YouTube who says, just get back out there, bro. This is your story. You decide how it goes. You didn't lose your edge. You're just sharpening something way more valuable now. Wisdom. So allow yourself the small rides. Sit on the bike and breathe. Go talk to people. Cry if you need to. But above all, remember this. Confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward in spite of it. So here's the question some people sometimes ask, and maybe you've asked yourself this too. Why even bother going back? After everything, the crash, the fear, the sleepless nights, the look on your partner's face when they thought they'd lost you. Why not just say, that's it, I'm done. I've had my run. This isn't for me. Truth is, I've seen a lot of people comment that way on our videos. And the honest answer, for a while, I did. I walked away. I didn't ride. I didn't even think about bikes. I didn't even look at bikes. I told myself I was being practical, responsible, and it was time to grow up. I've had a couple of times in my life where I didn't ride for a while. And each time, deep down, I missed it. I missed the way riding used to clear my head. The way the world made sense at 50 miles an hour. The way every problem in life just got a little bit quieter the moment that kickstand went up. But more than anything, I miss the version of me that rode. Anxiety is a hell of a salesman. It tells you all kinds of stories. You're not ready. You're being selfish. It's too risky. Remember what happened last time? And look, some of that's true. You should respect the risk. You should be smarter after a crash. But there's a difference between fear that keeps you safe and fear that keeps you small. And I didn't want to live a life defined by some terrible thing that had happened to me. Maybe you don't either. And here's the twist. I don't ride now the way I did in my 20s. I'm not out to be the fastest guy on the mountain. I don't take unnecessary chances. I ride smarter now. I gear up, usually. I have more appreciation, more gratitude, and I'm more in tune with the machine and everything around me when I ride. Because once you've kissed the pavement and gotten back up, every mile feels like something you earned. This journey, it's not about getting back to who you were before the crash. That person's gone, and that's okay. It's about becoming someone new. Someone who understands the weight of the risk, but rides anyway. Someone who's been shaken, but still moves forward. That's why this matters. Not because motorcycles are everything, but because being afraid and still showing up is important. Whether it's a bike, a relationship, a dream, facing fear is what puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. So no, I didn't bounce back overnight, but I came back. Not as who I was, but as who I chose to be. And you can too. If you've made it this far, then first of all, thank you. Not just for watching, but for letting yourself feel this stuff. Because I know it's not easy. Talking about fear, real fear, it's not standard stuff in the biker culture. We're supposed to be tough, unshakable. But here's the truth. You can be tough and still scared. You can be brave and still need help. And you can be strong, but still be a little bit emotional when you ride by that spot where it happened. Recovery's not about erasing those feelings. It's about finding your way back to yourself, even if that version looks a little bit different now. Maybe you ride slower now. Maybe you triple check intersections. Maybe you only ride on perfect weather days with no traffic. That's okay, because you're still riding. You're not frozen in the moment of the crash. You moved forward. Even if it was just sitting on the bike with the engine off, whispering to yourself, I think I can do this again. So if you're still struggling, if you haven't gotten back on the bike yet, you're not weak. You're in the middle of your comeback. And when you're ready, whether that's tomorrow or 10 years from now, the road will still be there. So if this video resonated with you, or if you have something to add to this conversation, like maybe you've got experiences that are different, but can help somebody out there, drop it in the comments. Share your story. And in the meantime, as we love to say, ride hard, stay salty, and we'll see you in the next one.